Ain't no one in the NFL better than me.
Fluke for real. Here we go. You know it. You love it. We're breaking down the biggest, best performances and some of the down performances that we got to talk about here. Starting out with Mr. Three-letter name, Mr. Breakout. Finally, we'll see what happens next week. And that's what we're talking about now. It's Jaxon Smith-Njigba, 37 fantasy points, 7 catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Dude, oh my gosh. I hope I didn't bother to check. I didn't think about it. What his starting, like how the not people that started him, what the percentage was, but man, because it's been rough. It's been rough goings. And last week, there was no DK Metcalf, and a bunch of people started him, and he sucked. And it was like, and it was like, man, is he like? There was just it came into question, like, man, we might have been wrong. Like he might not. Like every opportunity was there. Like what happened? Well, he heard all that, and 37 fantasy points, dude. I mean, best of his career, maybe. Forever going forward, or are we going to see better than this ever?
No, this is definitely a career high, and this is going to be incredibly tough to beat. To answer your question, I pulled it up on Sleeper. He was started in 55% of leagues going into the week.
Decent.
I started him in every league. I have him in about 4 leagues.
Yeah. I faced your fiance. I faced your fiance in fantasy football this week, and she started him.
Thank you for your stat
I didn't even realize
to give for the W.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
What do you mean? Is it 37 points?
One.
I mean, 44 points. Duh. I mean, you really missed that. Yeah, there you go. No, I was like, I had like a solid percentage, and then I like looked at it going into Sunday Night Football, and I was like, what the? And I didn't even realize she had him in the lineup. So big game there. Here's what we got to talk about. DK Metcalf is going to return to the lineup. There has been small rumors that DK Metcalf gets traded. I don't think that happens. He is
Monday. We don't know.
Right.
This could be a very silly conversation.
We'll see.
Why would they trade him?
I unfortunately have to. Based on this season, this is not an indication of what I think of the player because I love him. But based on the season, we've had like one other week like this, and besides that, we've been like widely disappointed. So like even after a 37-point game, I still struggle to like be excited about putting JSN back in my lineup.
So he has only scored over 15 points twice, and that was that week 2 great game. And more specifically, he's only scored over 13.2 points twice.
Right.
So it's even more specific. So here's the thing. I love JSN. I've been a believer. There was a reason he was the first wide receiver taken in the previous year's draft class. And there's a reason that he has become the wide receiver too. So he's definitely has a talent, and he can be someone that can have some really solid games going forward. But you and I were talking in our Discord. You can access through patreon.com/fantasy. This is a great opportunity to trade him away if you got him. And I don't think the recipient is going to get got. Like, I think it's a fine trade. But there is no one that is ever going to have a higher price going into the NFL or going into the fantasy football trade deadline than a guy who just dropped 39 points. Yeah, there you go. I don't know what you're doing, but I believe in you. And
I have the
trade phone. Oh, perfect. Good move. And you have an extra week to do this because the Seahawks are on a bye week. So you have even more buffer to let people panic and try to accept this offer. So I do think for real, but I think an even better opportunity to trade him away. You can still trade for him if it's spend a lot right now, but
the price,
I like what you were saying in the Discord. I'm going to say it as your claim into the mic. For real, but I think trade him.
Cool. All right. Quentin Johnston. Big touchdown. 70 yards, 60 yards, something like that. But he gets 22 fantasy points, 4 catches on 5 targets for 118 and a touchdown. This is where I'm kind of like, show me again, because the Chargers have been throwing the football a lot more. Shout out Loud McConkey. But I don't know if I'm going to sign up for 22. So, I mean, he's out on waivers. We didn't bring him up in the waiver wire, but it could be a decent pickup and something to monitor. But I'm going to say Fluke for right now.
I'm in 100% agreement because not only has he missed the 2 games with an injury, but it's 6.8 points in week 1, then 22, then 12, then 2, then 5. So this is a really boomer bust player. I'm in agreement. This is a fluke.
Cool. Austin Eckler, 17.3 fantasy points in Brian Robinson Jr.'s absence. Do we start to see a little more of a split backfield here, Wes?
I think so. I don't think it hurts Brian Robinson, though, but I'm starting to lean towards for real. I'd love to see this again next game, especially because they have a pretty tough game. I think against the Steelers next. That is a good test to see how this rushing attack looks. Jaden Daniels will still be fine, but Eckler is starting to look more like himself from not last season, but the year before. He's starting to run with more power and more speed.
Yeah, dude. He's quietly looked so good all year. Yeah. His efficiency is off the charts. Here's his yards per carry throughout the season so far. 5 yards per carry, 4.8, 11.7, 11.2, 2.3, 4.3, 7.4, and then 3.8 in this last game. But he gets in the end zone there. He's the RB12 on the week. He's quietly been really good. I would like to see him get more opportunities because, the Washington Commanders offense sucks, right?
I know. Dude, they need help.
So bad.
They should trade for DK and CD Lamb.
Keep an eye on this because if this split happens more and more, I think it'll be exciting for sure. Rico Dowdle, 21.7 fantasy points. Are they going to finally give this guy the keys, or the keys just be like a shitty 93 Civic? Like, is that what it like without Dak, without CD? Like, does this matter now? Or?
It's like a parent who's like, we're gonna give you a car finally, and you're like, yes, and then it's gonna be a beat up, shitty, run down car, so you can scratch it and get it banged up without taking major consequences. Yeah, I guess it takes Dak Prescott leaving with a hamstring injury, and CeeDee Lamb getting an AC joint, and suspending Ezekiel Elliott for Dowdle to be like, yeah, I can have a pretty solid game. So I can't help but call this a fluke, especially with all that going forward. I can't buy into it, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, if they give him the keys, maybe he becomes flex worthy, but I mean, it's hopeful. I don't know. He's clearly the best running back. I just don't know how good the offense is going to be anymore, but we'll see. Yeah. And then Taysom Hill here, Wes, 16 fantasy points, 4 catches, 41 yards, 5 rushes for 19 yards and a touchdown. This might be more for real than I want it to be because everyone's hurt in New Orleans. And now that Dennis Allen's gone, actually, Dennis Allen had a big old crush on Taysom Hill, but I don't know. Well, I don't know what really to think of this. This team is bad, but he's probably going to get some opportunities because they can't just give Kamara the ball the whole time. Anyway, next guy here, you already mentioned him, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 16 fantasy points, 6 targets, 5 for 50 and a touchdown. This is looking for real.
Yeah. I don't line him up right away. But I said, I feel like you should go get him and put him on your roster, but I think it's for real enough to keep him on your team or to go add him to your team and then see if he continues this touchdown streak or at least can get more targets. But I think this is for real.
Cool. Yeah. Mike Gesicki, 27 fantasy points, 5 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 gritties. We've been on a roller coaster with Gesicki this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold back my comments because he's actually going to come up in our Thursday Night Football preview for me.
Okay.
I don't know if you would like to share anything at the moment or you want to just tease it and wait till we get there.
I'll do a little bit of both. Okay, this will be a light tease, but I'll still just kind of generalize my thoughts here. Without T. Higgins, this offense is very different. And we see that with Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase has kind of struggled without T. Higgins, and that's very interesting. And I think that adds more attention to Jamar Chase when Higgins isn't out there. And so you see Gesicki do this, but as a Dolphins fan who has watched Gesicki for many years, this guy is a receiver. And that's partly why Mike McDaniel decided to move on, because he wanted a blocking tight end. And now Jonnu Smith has like 6 targets in the last 3 games. I don't understand.
Right.
Anyway, but Gesicki is a great wide receiver. And if with how tight ends have been very confusing, I say for real, it'll be interesting how the matchup is week to week. But we'll talk about this matchup against the Ravens in a few moments here.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Demarcus Robinson, 27.4 fantasy points, 4 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks for Demarcus Robinson. Last week, we called it fluke because it was 2 touchdowns on 2 catches on 3 targets. This week, I'm still going to call it a fluke, unfortunately, because Puka got ejected and he took the Puka role, and that was just kind of how it went. I think you're going to be wasting fab if you try and spend fab on DeMarcus Robinson, and I actually don't. I don't think he's worth rostering because I don't know how you're going to determine when to play him. Like, unless there's an injury to one of the 2 top guys, I don't think he's going to have this value. Like,
well, I think that's the reason to roster him. I agree that it shouldn't be a lot of fab, and he should not be your waiver priority for this upcoming week. But yeah, Cooper Kupp's been out there easy these last 2 games, so there's that as well that makes me, turn my head a little bit and consider DeMarcus Robinson as a rosterable wide receiver. I give this 1-2 weeks tops before I drop him from my next waiver wire. But if he can get another 15-point game the next 2 weeks, he should stay on your lineup, or not your lineup, stay on your team, because Puka keeps getting hurt. It's ridiculous. So,
and to his credit, as the wide receiver 3 end of last season, we saw him have some solid games. He was getting in the end zone. He wouldn't really pass that like 20-point threshold, but he would get in that like 13 to 18 points. So he's not like untalented. Like, he's not just crap at football and he's just like getting lucky. Like, he's a good player who has a good quarterback throwing the ball. He's on a 17-game pace of like 34 touchdowns on the season, and I'm like, well, hang on, guys, let's pump the brakes there. But he is a good player, so yeah, if he's out there, roster him, I think for sure. Let's loop these guys together, man, because this is really what it is. It's these guys together. D-Hop and Patrick Mahomes, 28.6 fantasy points for Hopkins, 30.6 for Mahomes. 8 catches, 86 yards, 2 tutties on 9 targets. Sounds familiar. Juju Smith-Schuster. Rashee Rice is what I really mean there, but still. But I think what I mean here is when Mahomes is in his bag with a wide receiver, that wide receiver is for real, and that's relevant. And Hopkins is legit, dude. Like, this is sick. Like, this is a good connection here. And I'm looking forward to continuing to roll this out. I mean, this is awesome. I think this is going to be, dude. The Chiefs are going to go undefeated. This is going to be so annoying. This is going to be so annoying. I'm a little
worried as a Dolphins fan that they're going to just keep finding
they're
ways
to win. It. Yeah, they're going to do it. But
I could have sworn Hopkins was going to get the game-winning overtime touchdown. I thought he was going to too. I thought he was going to walk away with 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a reason to say he's not a lock in your lineup?
No, especially after this game. Like, he needs to stay in your lineup. Yeah. He's at worst. And with where you got him at, he's at worst your flex play. Like, with where he's being drafted, or if you picked him up off the waivers, like, he's at worst your flex play. You have 2 wide receivers that are also great options as well. So he's a lock into lineups. He's got to stay there for sure. And then Mahomes. 30.6 fantasy points, 44 pass attempts. Okay. Like, are we shifting back here a little bit? Are we going back into this round? Because it wasn't like they were behind. Like, this was a pretty neutral game script most of the game. Like, it was a pretty kind of just back and forth. I think it was a 1-score game the entire time. And 44 pass attempts. I get it. We got overtime. He didn't throw the touchdown in overtime, so this could have been an even bigger game for him. I don't know if I'm going to say for real on 30.6, but 44 pass attempts, I think is maybe we're going to get back in the groove here. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that we're leaning towards for real that Mahomes is going to be a startable fantasy quarterback. And I know someone. Well, I know someone. I beat someone because they started Mayfield instead of Mahomes, and it came down to the wire, and it was just that one little decision. And it was in our family league actually. Let me pull up just the final stat line. It just all the difference there, but I don't know why I'm rubbing it in his face. That's so mean of me. But it was a 13-point game. Anyway, that being said, Mahomes would have helped him win. Mahomes would have won that game. And I think now that people are seeing that because he was absolutely on people's benches. Yeah, with Hopkins, Kelsey's picking up too. Kelsey's getting there. He's playing like
14 targets.
Yeah,
that's
like
sick.
I think it was 12, something like that, but it's still crazy. And he had a fumble too. And Kelsey is still great. So we're at that point now where, Mahomes could be starting over your quarterback now. I'm leaning towards for real.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about some bad guys. Jalen Waddle, he's a bad guy. Remember when I just told you I just traded for Jalen Waddle? That
you
sucks.
did. Stupid.
Saved my week on a touchdown.
Point and laugh.
Got screwed by the pitch play. I was like, it wasn't a big deal. He was only like 9.9 points, but then he lost like 23 yards on the he went to negative receiving yards. I was like, cool, nice, that's awesome. Not enough that I'm a Dolphins fan and I watched that happen, but I now get that in my fantasy lineup as well. 7.6. I am scared to roll out Jalen Waddle. I was looking at it today and I went, what happened? What happened? Week 1, 16.5, looked good. Oh, there you go, dipshit. It was against the Jaguars. Everyone looks good against the Jaguars. Like I didn't bother to stop and think about that before I made a trade for him.
True.
But I think I'm gonna have a hard time. This feels for real because Devon Achane is the new wide receiver 2 on the team. And he's pacing for over 1,000 receiving yards. Like, this is insane.
Yeah. And it's just amazing how, I felt very strongly about Achane, and we both did.
Yeah.
I went as far as to say Achane was going to be the very best.
You said 1, I had him 4. Yeah. We were both top 5.
One of the points I made was that in training camp, because I want to look at Achane's receiving stats as I continue talking here and pull it up on my phone. But I pointed out in training camp that Achane was seeing so much receiving work that I half joked that he was like the number 2 target behind Tyreek Hill. And I was like, I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. Oh, it is. It's very much the case. If you take just Achane's receiving stats for fantasy, that's 8 catches. This is a running back. This is a running back. Devon Achane had 8 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. Achane as a wide receiver alone almost scored 20 points. So this offense in Miami is completely running through Achane. I don't know what's happened to Tua and Tyreek. Thankfully, Tyreek got 12 points. We debated putting him on this segment as well for the bad side, but 12 it could be a lot worse. But yeah, this is 100% for real. He's not a drop candidate just yet as you make your way towards the playoff stretch. But this is, I don't know what's happened in Miami. They completely changed their offensive identity. It's just Achane now, which is fine because you and I draft him in the second round as much as like every league that we're in. So we're reaping that benefit, but I don't know what's going on there, man.
Yeah. Devon Achane was the wide receiver 11 on the week, by the way. Just in his receiving work.
What? Okay.
That's insane. That's insane. Imagine having Garrett Wilson in your lineup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then put Josh Jacobs in your lineup.
Right.
And it's the same person. It's the same slot. It's the same.
It's just one.
You have two
slot.
players in one slot. He's awesome. Oh my gosh,
He's
it's
so
incredible. Good. It's the only thing I'm happy about with the Dolphins this year. It's so much fun.
Same.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, Jalen Waddle to the bench, likely. Maybe matchup dependent. I don't know. Probably not. This is tough. Anyway, Kyler Murray, 4.8 fantasy points.
Oh my goodness.
Here's the thing. Ready? And a win. Like, unfortunately, Kyler didn't need to do anything. Like, the defense was incredible. And Amari DiMercado, they're just running the clock out at the end of the first half. And he was like, what? Oh, you said run the ball out? I thought you said kick ass and run in the end zone. Like, I don't know. Like
it sounds similar. Yeah.
55-yard touchdown. It's been up and down with Kyler. More good lately than bad. But I think this is his worst game of the season, right? Like, this was bad.
Well, if it's not, then I would say for real. If it's not the worst,
this is the worst game of the season. I mean, this is the worst game of the season by like 7 points. So, I mean, he gets the Jets next week, so I can understand not wanting to put him in your lineup, and I understand that. But
I'm more worried about
and then a bye week.
About the great wide receiver everyone drafted as the highest rookie drafted in fantasy football.
Wasn't that fun?
Put out another dud.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm not super worried about Kyler. I mean, I've already moved on. I'm not starting him in my leagues where I have him, but I'm not dropping him. So there you go. I don't know. Yeah, and then Marv, 3.4 fantasy points. I mean, you suck, bro. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I thought they figured it out against Miami, and it was like, give him these like, his route tree needs to be shortened up where he gets to it's quicker passes, it's faster. I mean, it's just to be honest, the run game is so good that they don't have to pass the ball.
Which is wild they took him that early in the
draft. I mean, they need like don't get me wrong. Like, for a franchise, sure. Like, I get it. But, like, also, like, what? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not starting. Yeah, Marv is going to be on my bench, too. Like.
Yeah, I mean, I've benched him.
This sucks.
Like 3 weeks in a row, and I was wrong on one of those weeks. But, like, if I just, the color-coded matchups is really helpful. This is the stretch he just finished out. You can't. Focus isn't getting there, but you can see he's got the Jets up next. And that's also not that solid. So he just went through a really rough spot in the passing and the receiving matchups. And then after that, it's looking fine. He's got a bye week in 2 weeks. It's Seattle and Minnesota, and then Seattle again, and then New England and Carolina.
And then Rams. That's a pretty good end of the season. So maybe
he's a potential trade for candidate.
Maybe a buy low. Yeah.
You get him in the playoffs. Imagine, dude, everyone has insane weeks against the Rams. Can you imagine lining up Marvin Harrison for the championship in your flex because you traded for him? So
for the division, by the way.
For the division,
you know how good that game's gonna be? That game's gonna be so good. Dude,
I just talked myself out of saying this is for real, and now it's a fluke.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. Buy him.
That was fun.
Buy Marvin Harrison Jr.
Buy him.
We're certifiably insane. Last guy here, Joe Flacco, 3 fantasy points. That sucked.
That sucked.
That sucked. I don't know. It was like suddenly it was like, hey, you got any Anthony Richardson back there? Like, I don't like maybe someone else here for Josh Downs. Maybe we got something going on. Steichens doubled down though and said he is the guy for the rest of the year. Again after that game, and so better days ahead for sure. I mean, the Vikings aren't a bad a bad defense to just pass
Brian
all
Flores
over.
Is a very good defensive coach, so that makes sense to me. But also, like, the fact that he couldn't even find the end zone doesn't make sense to me. So. Yeah, I have to say that's a fluke. He'll be okay.